Welcome everyone, good morning. Today's Amud is Daf Tes Amud base. Makos Daf Tes Amud base. Says the Mishnah, we're about 10 lines down. New Mishnah. The Gemmorrah is going to be discussing today the dinim of manslaughter, killing a guy unintentionally when he's a sinner, when he hates the guy's guts. That's a major part of today's Amud. What happens when Reuben kills Shimon? We know he hates him, and he kills him by, it looks like an accident. That's the kasha. So, says the Mishnah, Asuma einai goyle. Someone that's blind doesn't go to Golas. Interesting then, someone that's blind doesn't go to Golas. Why? There's a We're going to see. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's the words of the Tana Rabbi Yehuda. Suma doesn't go to Golas ever. Reb Meir Omer Goyla. Reb Meir is chaylik. Reb Meir says the summa is Goyla. That's the first machlekes, whether the summa is or is not Goyla. And we'll see that they're chaylik in how you derish a pasuk. There's one pasuk. How do we learn it? Hasoina, next thing. Hasoina, this gets more complicated. Hasoina eina Goyla. You hate someone, there's never Golas. That's the Tanakama. There's going to be three opinions in the Mishnah. Hasoina eina Goyla. That's the first opinion. That's the Tanakama. Hasoina does not go to Golas. Ever. Rabbi Yossi Eimer Hasayna Nerog. Rabbi Yossi takes it a step further. Not only does he not go to Golas, if someone hates someone and he killed him unintentionally, he gets killed. We kill him. It's as if he's been warned. A shar muad is a shar that's gored 3 times. After a certain amount of times, you're warned, you know, everyone knows you hate the guy. If you kill him unintentionally, you should have been more careful. So, Nerag. Reb Shimon Omer, third opinion, Yesh Seine Geile, V'yesh Seine She'ein Geile. Sometimes a Seine is Geile, and sometimes a Seine is not Geile. Zaklal, says Reb Shimon, Kol Shehu Yochalei Meledas Orag Ein Geile. If you could feasibly say that he knew about it, then Ein Geile. Right? But if it's infeasible that he knew, if for sure he didn't know he was going to kill the guy, okay, so sometimes the fear of Shimon, so there's 3 opinions in the Mishnah. If a sign is Goyla. First opinion says sign is never Goyla. Second opinion says, Rabbi Yossi says, you kill him. Third opinion is, sometimes you kill the signer, sometimes you don't kill the signer. It depends. If you think that the signer knew that he's throwing the axe and he thought he's going to kill him, then it's like Mazid, Ein Goyla.
What's the definition of soine first?
So we saw that some Machronim say, or Rishonim can't remember, that if he doesn't talk to the guy for 3 days because he hates him, right, that's already considered a soine. It doesn't have to be that, I don't know what, he robbed you for $1 million, he took your house away, I don't know. I mean, the Gemmorrah goes so far as to say, when we're talking about if you're allowed to hate someone, with the pasuk Yireh Shas Onecha Reveses Tachas Masa, you see the shar of your enemy is buckling under its weight, right? And what is Soina, like, if you hate him, why do you hate him? Obviously because he was over Aveira. That's why he hate the guy. Or I can't remember.
That's down the coast.
Even if he's over an Aveira, you're allowed to hate the guy. You see a guy talking Lashon Hara, you're supposed to hate him. But you're not supposed to hate it. I don't know. I'm not sure. We're not going to get into it. But there is a tzad there. Can't remember what. But even if the guy's having a Aveira, you hate him. So here we're not talking about that. Here we're talking about a case where you really hate the guy. You didn't talk to him. I guess in those days it was considered like he's in chayrim.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Says the. So those are the 3 opinions. Says the Gemmorrah. Torah Rabbanan. Now the Mishnah said, the summa eina Goyla. That was Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Tanabana below Rois. The pasuk says below Rois. He killed him without seeing him. Prat the summa. This comes to exclude the summa that the summa never sees. That's the mashmais. That's how Rashi explains it. The summa never sees, so therefore summa won't be Goyla. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Reb Meir Omer below Rois. Reb Meir says something else below Rois. The Rabbi says a summa. Below Rois tells me to include the summa. That the summa is Goyla. So they're both learning the same pasuk. One says B'lei Reis means he's not Gaila. One says B'lei Reis means he is Gaila. So my time with Rabbi Yehuda, So the Gemara is going to try and explain. What's the reason that Rabbi Yehuda says Eina Goyla? The Chsiv Vashe Yov Esrei B'Yar. It says Vashe Yov Esrei B'Yar. The guy walks into the yar, meaning afilu summa, right? It doesn't say exclude the summa. Anyone walks into the yar. Now also belay rice miate, and then the pasuk says belay rice. He doesn't see, so he's miyat. Memayit is coming to exclude a summa. So there's one pasuk. You assume naturally it's talking about everyone, including someone that's blind, and then the pasuk says belay rice to exclude someone that's blind. Reb Chaim belay rice lemayit. Bivli das is lemayit. There's two psukim that are lemayit. One says belay rice, and one says bivli das. So having miyat achamiyat, there's two miyutim. Ve'en miyat achamiyat el rabbis. That's why he learns his pasuk as a ribboy that the summa is goyla. So one says there's only one pasuk, the other says there's two psukim. Now what's Rabbi Yehuda going to do with the pasuk bivli das? So Rabbi Yehuda bivli das, he learns something else from it. Nothing with summa. Brad and mischaven who the asya. Bivli das comes to exclude someone that's mischaven. I think we saw before it means he's mischaven intentional. He wants to kill an animal, he kills a person. Otherwise, bivli das would mean just mazed. Says so. Okay. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yesi Omer. Asayna einay narag.
Hassan and Eric.
Asayna narag. Sorry, that's the lashon of the Mishnah. Asayna narag. So there's three word machlekes. The first man says Asayna eina goyla. He doesn't go to Golas. Second shita is Rabbi Yesi, he's narag. Third shita Rabbi Shimon says sometimes goyla, sometimes not goyla. Ask the Gemara, you kill him, Asayna narag. V'alay asubei. How'd you kill a sayna? They didn't give him asra. You always have to give a warning before you kill, right? For someone to be chayv misa, there has to be asra. You have to warn him. And here we're talking about a case where you unintentionally dropped the bucket on the guy. So obviously there wasn't a warning. No one said, if you unintentionally slip, then you're going to be chayv misa. V'lay asra. So Gemara answers, Masisin Rabbi Yesi by Yehudahi. Our Mishnah is going with fear Rabbi Yesi by Yehuda. This Rabbi Yesi isn't the regular Rabbi Yesi. This is Rabbi Yesi by Yehuda. That's who this Rabbi Yesi is. The Tanya, Rabbi Yesi by Yehuda Aimer. He holds Chaver Einet Tzarch Asra. Someone who's a Talmud Chacham never needs Asra. If you should learn Nit Asra El Lahavchim Ben Shoygeg LeMezid. Asra, the point of Asra is just to differentiate between someone that's Shoygeg and Mezid, someone that's intentional or unintentional. And therefore, since the Talmud Chacham knows the halacha, you don't have to give Asra ever. And therefore, a Saina, he kills this guy. He doesn't need Asra, huh?
Because we're talking about Talmud Chacham.
No, he's not talking about Talmud Chacham. We're talking about a Saina. But you don't need Asra because Asra is just to make sure that the guy knows it's Asa. Right?
You do need
everyone knows it's Asa. So what they explain is Asra, let's say with the Ritzicha, it's not to make sure the guy knows it's Asa because you have to give Asra Tech Yedibur of the Ritzicha. It's not enough that you told him a minute ago. The guy's not going to forget in a minute. You told him that it's also going to kill someone, you're going to get killed. And a minute later he's going to forget. The point is it has to be like fresh in his mind. Right? He's got to be like well aware. It's not just that he should know the din. So this guy here, the Saina, he knows he's killing the guy. He knows it's intentional. There's no chash here that he's going to, I didn't realize it's so bad. He knows it's bad. He's killing him. He's a Saina. That's what I think that Rabbi Yesi is going to hold. That's why I say a Nerag, you kill him, he doesn't need Asra. He knows what he's doing. He hates him. It's premeditated. He wants to kill the guy. It's not just, he happens to have forgotten for a split second how bad it is to kill someone. That's not what we're talking about here. Says the Gemara. Now we're going to get into Reb Shimon's opinion. Reb Shimon Aimer yesh sayna goyla. So Tanya, we have a brisa. Reb Shimon yesh sayna goyla, yesh sayna ein goyla. How do you explain this Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon says sometimes he's goyla, sometimes he's not goyla. How are you going to explain this Mishnah? So Ketzad, the brisa says nifsak goyla, nishmat ein goyla. So there's a difference. If the guy's holding, let's say, a rope, right? And it's nifsak, the rope tears. The rope gets cut. Goyla. He goes to Golas. he that for sure wasn't intentional. You're right, Reuven hates Shimon. He's pulling up a big, heavy thing with a rope, a big, heavy, I don't know what, piece of machinery, and then the chevel breaks. And right when his Saina walks underneath, So if it cuts, there's no way he could have premeditated that the chevel would have broken exactly when he's walking underneath. Then he's Gaila. When he's not Gaila, Nishmat ein Gaila. If it falls out of his hand, whoops! He loses grip, the thing falls, kills the guy, then we're going to say that's sure intentional. Turns out, the Tanakhama is arguing the same case. The Tanakhama holds, even if the chevel gets cut, right, he's going to say, Ein Gaila. We'll still assume it's premeditated.
It's important to note that galus doesn't, like, in other words, there's three different things that can happen if you kill somebody. Either you go to galus, you don't go to galus because Hashem will deal with you,
or
you're killed.
Right.
So in the event that so there are certain cases where you need to understand that they don't go to galus because it's just so questionable what happened here.
He's not going to go to galus. It looks like it's not okay. But and Rabbi Yosef will say you even kill the guy. L'chayra. If the guy's walking underneath and the chevel tears, right, it gets cut.
It could be you didn't plan it properly. You didn't.
It looks like you could premeditate. You can make it look like we're going to see. You can make it look like an accident.
Oops, yeah.
Oh, you can make it look like an accident, and then he's chayav galus. So
no muffins. Yeah.
So says I apologize, no muffins
today. No, not you, him.
So that's the first way we learn this. That's how the Bryce explains Reb Shimon in the Mishnah. The Reb Shimon in the Mishnah says sometimes he's gaila, sometimes he's not gaila. If the chevel gets cut, he's gaila. If it slips out of his hand, whoops, ain't a gaila, because he's a murderer. It's premeditated. The Gemara now asks a steer. Vatanya, it says in the Bryce, Reb Shimon Omer, la'olam ain't a gaila, ad she shamet machzela miyadai. He's never gaila. A klal, Reb Shimon says a person's never gaila unless it falls out of his hand. L'chayri is talking about Saina, Eina Saina, he's not mechalik in this brisa. Whatever case is, you're not gaila unless it falls out of your hand, right? The machzela miyada is this piece of machinery, equipment, whatever Rashi explained on Daf Base. You're only gaila if it falls out. But if it gets cut, it's mashma, if the chevel is cut, ain't a gaila, right? So now we have a stira. Now you're saying, if it's nishmat, then you're gaila. And before you said, line above, nishmat ain't a gaila. Stira. Because the previous brisa tries to explain our Mishnah, the Reb Shimon holds, when it's nifsak gaila. If it gets cut in half, then you gaila. But if it just falls out of your hand, ain't a gaila. Falls out of your hand, that's premeditated, right? But now you're saying, ain't a gaila, unless it slips out of your hand, then you're gaila. So make up your mind. Here he's not, here he's talking about also, Saina, Ayev, it doesn't matter, right? So that's the kasha. We're going to see the Gemara answers, Saina, Gaila. But l'chayr, the kasha is, Nishmat. So Gemara, let's read the Gemara inside. Kasha, Nifsak, Nifsak. So to steer a Nifsak, because here, the first price he says Nifsak Gaila, and this is Mashma, Nifsak ain't a Gaila, only Nishmat's Gaila, right? So Kasha, Nifsak, Nifsak. Kasha, Nishmat, Nishmat. And also Kasha, Nishmat, Nishmat. The first price says Nishmat ain't a Gaila, and this price says ain't a Gaila, Achi Shamat Meyadai. Only if it's Nishmat Gaila. So what's the din? So there's a steer in both of them. So the Gemara answers, Nifsak and Nifsak like Kasha, Haba'ayev Habasayna. So if it gets cut, Nifsak and Nifsak like Kasha, Haba'ayev Habasayna. Meaning what? If it gets cut and he's a Ayev, Gaila. If he's a Sayna, ain't a Gaila. We'll see Rashi inside in a second. And now Nishmat and Nishmat like Kasha, if it slips out of his hand, there's also not a kasha. Ha Rabbi, ha Rabbanon. We're going to see what this means. It's slightly complicated. If it falls out of his hand, this is Rabbi, this is Rabbanon. So let's just take a quick look, Chazara, on Tav Zayin Amud Beis, the Machlek is Rabbi and Rabbanon. Take a look at the Mishnah, Zayin Amud Beis, about 8 lines from the bottom. Here we're talking about a guy swings an axe, and the head flies off, right? Before it hits the tree. The first stuff of the Mishnah. It says Nishmat Tabarza Mekitai, the head of the axe flies off, V'haragin kills a guy, Reb Yomi Eina Gaila. Chacham Aimrim Gaila. So nishmat, if it falls off, Gaila. So Rabbi says Eina Gaila. Now don't think the nishmat here and nishmat here is the same thing. The Rashi explains that nishmat in the Mishnah here, with the head of the axe falling off, he's still holding on to the handle, right? He swings the axe, he's still holding on to the handle, and that's called nishmat. That's similar to the case that Reb Shimon is talking about here of nifsak, where he's still holding on to the rope, and then the rope tears. So nifsak here is like nishmat there. Again, nifsak here, because he's still holding on to the rope, that's like nishmat there, where he's still holding on to the axe handle, and the head goes flying, right? So therefore what?
So it should be the same case.
So, well, let's see. We're going to see Rashi inside in a second. So nishmat lekasha harebi harabon. Take a look in Rashi. Nifsak lekasha harebi harabonon. It's about 10 lines above in Rashi where we are. Nifsak lekasha harebi harabonon. So hadik tani nifsak gaila afilu besaina. The mashmais that nifsak is gaila. The first brisa nifsak gaila nishmat eni gaila, right? Even when he's a saina, it's koshke ba'ayev. For sure, if he's a ayev, he's gaila. So if it gets cut, he's gaila. Who's that? That's Rabbanon. Now, Valiba Reb Shimon, who is saying, Reb Shimon is explaining this in Rabbanon. That what? That when it's nifsak, always gaila. Da'amar nishmat abaz mikitay v'har gaila. And the Rabbanon over there say, when it's nishmat, it's gaila. And remember, we said that nishmat there is like nifsak here. Because nishmat there means it falls out of your hand completely. That's the case over here. That's similar to nifsak here. Now Rashi says, "V'nifsak abarzo achevel dumya denishmat abarzo mikitai." And here, where nifsak achevel, the chevel gets cut, that's like nishmat abarzo. That's like the head of the axe comes off over there. Shenisha ha'eged biyadai. Diktani, it says, nifsak eina gaila Rabbi he. So when it says nifsak eina gaila, says Rashi, nifsak eina gaila, that's Rabbi. Da'ama nishmat abarzo mikitai eina gaila. Okay, just the kasha is going to be, take a look in Taisvis, nishmat and nishmat like kasha, kan ba'ayev, kan b'seina, nifsak, second Taisvis. Taisvis asks him, taima. It turns out, Rebbe in the Mishnah there said, if the head of the axe goes flying, ain't a goyla, right? Rebbe, heichim ashkachas l'seina sheigla. You never have a case that a sign is nigla. Shebenishmat the benishmat oyev gaila v'lei seina. If it's nishmat, the oyev is gaila, the seina is not gaila. Then benifsak, if it gets cut, afilu oyev ain't gaila. So it turns out if you Rebbe, you never have a case where the seina is gaila. It's not a kasha. Maybe the seina is never gaila. Okay. The Rashi also brings this kasha. Rashi also says, it could be the Rebbe holds the soil is never gaila. Then Saina never happens to be gaila. Taisus answers a Saina would be gaila in a case where, let's say he hates him, right? He hates him, and it looks like an accident, right? You're going to say it's intentional. He shouldn't be gaila. Taisa says he falls from the roof on him. What falls from the roof? He falls from the roof, right? So this Saina falls from the roof, even though it looks like an accident, and we normally say, it looks like an accident, really it's premeditated. Taisa says, but since he's risking his own life, he's not going to do that to kill this guy, just because he hates him. So therefore he will be gaila. Take a look at Taisus. V'yesh leima, t'b'chol makom mashkachas ha'gagod shenofim minagag olav. T'yadu l'chol shaloi nofim midah sharia b'sakonas malves. In that case, when he falls 5 flights and he accidentally kills this guy, we're not going to say it was an accident. He'll drop a dli on him, he'll drop something on this guy's head, but he won't jump off the roof in order to kill him. That's Taisus' teretz. Rashi doesn't seem to say that. Rashi seems to be saying he's never gaila. Now, it's interesting. Take a look at Taisus on Daf Beis Amud Aleph. It was the first page. The second Taisus, Taisus Me'idim, the second Me'idim, which is the last narrow line in Taisus on Daf Beis. So Taisus asks, the first Mishnah said that you send the guy to Galus, right? We testify that guy's Chayiv Galus. And Taisus asks, why would you ever send the guy to Galus? You can always say, it was intentional. Taisus says, how do you send the guy to Galus? Say, oh, you killed this guy unintentionally. You can always answer, you think it was unintentional? It was intentional. I did it on purpose. Now, Taisus says, it's talking about the Mayrish Robosh or Glaimed Dova. People saw the head of the axe falling off. It didn't look like it's intentional. It looks like it's unintentional. People witness, they testify, they say, you saying it was intentional? What? We saw you swinging the axe and the head went flying. That was unintentional. You can't pretend it was intentional. So then Taisus asks, Kasha, it says in the Mishnah, our Mishnah said, the first time it said, Seine Eina Geila, right? The Seine is never Geila. So Taisus asks, why? If there's Ruglaim Medova, they saw the axe go flying, it looks like it's unintentional. Why the first Shita in our Mishnah says, Seine Eina Geila? Why not? People see, Reuven hates Shimon, but they see the head of the axe goes flying randomly, went 300 meters, killed a guy. Why is he Eina Geila? So Stam, it's interesting to know that someone will learn the machlekes between Reb Shimon and Rabbi in our Mishnah and the Tanakama is Reb Shimon is always Derish time at the Krah. The Torah says V'ulai Seina, right? What's the machlekes if you Derish time at the Krah? Reb Shimon says we look at the reason for the pasuk, and if the reason doesn't apply, the pasuk doesn't apply. But the Tanakama holds if the pasuk says a Seina is Eina Geila, it doesn't matter if the reason doesn't apply. A Seina Eina Geila, Gzeres HaKasev. We don't start explaining the reason. So the pasuk says a Seina Eina Geila. Reb Shimon says that's because he hates him. We're going to assume it was intentional. But if there's no reason to assume that it was intentional, if it's impossible for him to have committed this atrocious accident, right, intentionally, if it was definitely unintentional, so Reb Shimon says Lefamim Geila, sometimes Eina Geila.
Not necessarily negligence also. So in other words, if he's pulling up his rope,
if it looks like, in other words, if we could assume it to bad intentions, it looks like it was an accident. But guess what? You hate the guy's guts. We're gonna assume there was bad intentions. Say it was murder. Therefore, the same as Eina Geila. But if we know it wasn't murder, we know for a fact there's no way you could have swung this axe and hit this guy 300 meters away, exactly right between the eyes, right? So therefore, we're going to say Reb Shimon says he's Geila, but the Tanakama holds. It's a krah, it's a pasuk. The pasuk says, V'ulai Seina. It doesn't matter what the Seina is never Geila. That's how someone like train a machlekes. So the question is, the Fida Tanakama Taisa says, the Seina Eina Geila.
Yeah.
If there's Ruglaim Davar, why isn't he Geila?
Why isn't the question on the base, instead of saying I did it on purpose, you just said I'm a Seina?
So that's what Taisa says. You can say, you say you're a Seina. You don't know the guy.
1 second.
He said I'm a Seina.
1
I
second.
did it on purpose. I'm a Seina.
A
Good
Seina
kasha.
doesn't get scot free. That's not what happens. He'll get his
Well, that's
share
a
from
machlekes.
Shemayim.
The Rabbi Yeshivs says you kill him. Yeah, but he knows he wasn't a Seina. He knows it was unintentional. He said, listen, if this guy's no great tzaddik, he just killed his friend. He doesn't really care what happens in Shemaim. He just doesn't want Basin to lock him up in the
get
mikvah.
killed. He's gonna get
Clap a Shemaim guy, what will happen to him? Okay, he'll deal with that. He'll do tshuva.
So that's why that's why Shemayim will take
They're not going to put him in there. Right, so if he lies, he's not Chayiv Misa B'dei Shemayim because he lied.
So Taisha's...
No, he's Chayiv Misa B'dei Shemayim because he killed.
Well, the question is, he killed by
That's
accident.
irrelevant. It's too late now. You can't change whether it's
He
Chayiv
killed by
Shemaim.
accident.
I understand that.
Now it's too late.
He killed by accident. Now he could either be
Pay the price now.
go
or
to
not.
Galus or not go to Galus. He's getting out of Galus.
So it's interesting. Taisha's second teretz is that we're talking about a case where there's no Ruglaim Davar. If there's no Ruglaim Davar, then the Tanakama says he's Eina Geila. It's much better if there are Ruglaim Davar. If it looks like it's a clear accident, even if he's a Tanakama, Taisha's second teretz is he is Geila. So there's going to be a very fine machlekes between Rabbi Kiva and the Tanakama based on this Taisvus, when the Seina is Geila. They both agree that Seina is sometimes Geila and the Seina is sometimes not Geila. The Tanakama holds if there's a Ruglaim Davar, if we know for sure it was an accident, then even the Seina is not Geila. Rabbi Kiva L'chayve says a slightly toned down version. Says the Mishnah. We got to keep going. Says the Mishnah. Leichan Geilim. Where does the guy go to Galus? New Mishnah. Where does the guy go? La'ari Miklat. He goes to the Ir Miklat, a special town that's absorption center, absorption town, right? Miklat means comes It's
Mechad
collect.
Magam.
It's collect. It absorbs. It absorbs into. There's 3 in the Jordan and 3 in Eretz Canaan. It's interesting they calls it here Eretz Canaan because that's the lashon of the pasuk, I guess. They set up 3 Eretz Be'evarna and 3 in Eretz Canaan. Shnema, if you remember, 2.5 Shvatim stayed in Eva Yarden. They didn't want to come in to Eretz Yisrael, and the rest of them came into Eretz Yisrael. Shnema.
But there were also ones spread out.
So we're going to see how those spread out in a second. That's what we're going to discuss. Shenema. Make 3 cities Me'evel Yarden on the other side of the Jordan River. And 3 put in Eretz Canaan. Right? So for all those apikosim, we know that Israel, they had Me'evel Yarden even before they came to Eretz Yisrael. Forget about from the river to the sea. They had even Me'evel Yarden. The other side of the Jordan River they also had.
Well, that was Eretz Yisrael.
Actually, so it says the Gemara, it says the Mishnah, sorry, actually, V'shalosh be'eretz Canaan. Shneim v'shalosh ha'arim tibnu be'evel Yarden. V'shalosh ha'arim tibnu be'eretz Canaan. So it says the Mishnah, actually nivchuru shalosh be'eretz Yisrael, la yishalosh be'evenah kol tois. The 3 be'evel Yarden didn't work unless the 3 in Eretz Yisrael worked. Shneima, sheish ha'arim miglot tiena achi. So the Gemara's there, Mishnah's there, achi sheshton kol tos kachat. You can't have some working, some not working. They work together in unison. The 3 here don't work unless the 3 in Eretz Yisrael work. Now the Mishnah says, and there's roads to go from one to the other. So l'chera, this means
safe roads.
Huh?
Safe roads.
They would have to make nice, clear roads and put signs up this way to the Miklat. They had roads everywhere. Now it looks like the Lashon Rishon was lehem drachim mizu lezu. It's mashma from each Miklat to the other Miklat. Someone learned the pashtas. It means from all the cities in the country they had signs and roads to go to the Miklat. Shnema. Tachin lecha derech, prepare the way. V'shalashta. Now the Gemara's Mishnah says, now this guy killed someone unintentionally. They sent with him 2 bodyguards, 2 Talmid Chachamim, Shemi again in case the Gal Adam wants to kill him on the way. So Reuven killed Shimon. The Edom come and say it was an accident, and now the Gal Adam is trying to kill him before he gets to Miklat. So they sent him with 2 Talmid Chachamim to protect him. If the Ritzach comes to try and persuade him, it doesn't say 2 bodyguards, they send 2 Talmid Chacham to try and persuade the guy, hey, this will be a tzaddik, wait, he's going to Miklat, don't kill this guy. And they should try and convince him. Good luck with that. Rabbi Omer, it's a question is af or if it's who, they don't speak. Also he speaks, who medaber that's my. The best thing is he speaks himself. He should beg mechila, he should say it was an accident, not the Talmid Chachamim. It's better if he does it. Shenema v'zeh dvar haritzach. He quotes a pasuk. Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda omer betchila echad shogeg v'echad meizid makdim la'ori miklat. Now, a guy kills someone. We don't know if it's shogeg meizid. There's a din Torah happening. Straight away run to the miklat. This is what you mentioned the other day. First things first, get to the miklat. Right? Protect yourself. But Basin shalachim v'vein loisim sham. Now Basin brings him out from the miklat to bring it to Basin, to bring it to the Torah. Now Mishnah is chayv misa b'Basin hagu. If he's chayv misa in Basin, they kill him. B'shlein is chayv misa, but true. If he's not chayv misa, he's pata. Go home. But Mishnah is chayv galas, and if he's chayv galas, b'achzir noisel m'kaymei. Then they send him back to the Miklat. Shenema v'shivu isay haida el Miklat. How do I know this? They send him first to the Miklat. It says v'shivu. You bring him back to the Miklat. It's mashma he was already there. It says the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanon. Shalosh Arim Hivdol Moshe Be'eva Yadin, V'connect Ben Hivdol Yeshua Be'etz Canaan. So they made 3 in Eva Yadin, 3 in Eretz Canaan. M'chuvonon Sayu Kamin Shtei Shuas Shebekarim, and these 3 were lined up, connected each other. So basically, the country is 300 miles. So you had 4 quadrants, 4 quarters. Every 75 miles, there's an Miklat, right? And in Eva Yadin, parallel to those, you had the Miklat next to those on the other side of the river. V'chuvaza yikumin shtei shuas shebekarm Chevron b'Yehuda keneged Batza b'Midbar Shechem b'Harfaim keneged Ramas Gilad Kadesh b'Naftali keneged Golan b'Vashan v'shalesh v'shleishton shayu mishulashin. It says v'shilashta shayu mishulashin. They've got to be evenly spread out. Shayu midar l'Chevron k'Chevron l'Shechem and l'Chevron l'Shechem k'Shechem lekadesh u'meshchem lekadesh k'mekadesh etzachon. So each one was evenly spaced, right? Now take a look at Tosfos. Sorry, let's keep going. Let's keep going the line. One more line in the Gemara. So class by itself, class. So every yard and class by itself, class. So it's 3 there and 3 there, right? So Gemara asks. Well, it's getting very late here. So, okay, I guess we're going to call it a day because we're running very late here. Okay, so we'll carry it. It's a big